Kris here, Doom Telly, episode 74. And it's going to be another one of my decade of metal. So, but firstly, updates. Let's get those updates out of the way. I'll start with my competition. Again, thanks ever so much for any of you that have entered the 200 subs competition. I'm currently at 240 something, I want to say. Surpassed expectation. Honestly, I can't thank you all enough for the mentions, getting my name out there, and convincing people to watch the shite on a weekly/bi-weekly basis. Fortnightly, I think the word is. But yeah, thanks ever so much for the entries. Again, the competition's due to close this coming weekend. Did I say like Sunday 27th or something, or 28th or whatever it was? There's no hard or fast on that. I have a suspicion, I'm preempting, but I have a suspicion that next week I might not have much chance to do a video. So anyway, if it drags on for another week or not, don't be upset. I've not decided to run away with the £30 worth of winnings. But yeah, keep them coming. Videos have been great, so thanks ever so much. Band updates. GODTHRYMM, nothing to update as since the last update, but I'm going round to Hamish's again soon. Just to sort of say hello and be a general nuisance. But it's always good fun at Hamish and Kath's. So yeah, that's your GODTHRYMM update. Green Sabre update. Rehearsals in earnest now for our next gig, December the 7th. Night Train, Bradford, supporting Gods of Hellfire. Gonna be fantastic. Get yourself to that, and yeah, it'll be here quicker than you can imagine. I would imagine. So yeah, rehearsals in earnest now to get that together. We were hoping to throw in another new song for this set, but as it's worked out, I don't think that's feasible. So it'll be a classic Sabre set. Anyway, get yourself to it. CROWSBLOOD. This will be airing on Monday, ideally, so we will be rehearsing tonight, as that stands. Yeah, coming along brilliantly. I've been hanging around, being a nuisance of myself with Lee recently as well on something else that will raise its head at some point, but you'll just have to fucking wait. So, but yeah, I've been busy. So yeah, those are my musical updates. Look, under 3 minutes, just. Let's crack on with my decade of metal. Again, I won't go into the fucking nitty-gritty like I've done on all the others. But again, just to say, it was an idea that Metal Mickey did on his channel. He did a decade of metal, the 80s essentially, 1980. He did 10 videos through to 1989. And I thought, this is a brilliant idea. So I did my own version of it. So I've started my metal adventure, if you will, and as I've said on the other videos, I started getting properly into metal and hard rock in 1987. So I've started my decade, which will be 11 videos because I'm going to do 1997 as well. Started my decade from 87. Anyway, we're on to 1992 now. I've missed out something fucking blindingly obvious off of every single year, quite frankly. Last week, the video was 1991, and this was a tough year to try and whittle down to a top 6 and a glaring omissions, as I alluded to last week. And of course, I missed, it was a very, very close, almost to the top 6, definitely a top 10, but I completely forgot to mention, I wouldn't mind, I fucking mentioned it in the video leading up that I was about to discuss it, and then forgot to mention Morbid Angel's Blessed as a Sick, which for a period of my life, around that time, I preferred to Altars. On reflection, it's not my favourite of theirs. Whilst I'm at it, I'm going to dig it out. In fact, it's probably down there, isn't it? Monolord, Morbid. So, just so it gets an outing. Blessed Are the Sick, that's my original 1991 copy, and I saw them on this tour at night 4 on this, or night 3. Night 4. 16th of May, 1991, at the Manchester International 2. I did discuss the gig, but forgot to show you this. Anyway, it would have been an honourable mention. Not quite, but almost. But yeah, the point I'm fucking getting to, sorry, I'm full of cold at the minute, so you'll have to bear with me. Yeah, the point I was getting to, I've missed out something blindingly obvious every time. Now, I've made concise notes, as I have done on the previous ones. But we'll see which fucking obvious one I miss off this time round. The year is 1992. Now, a lot of honourable mentions on this list, but I found an easier top 6 to put together, certainly, than 89, 90, and 91. But a very fucking strong year in metal still, nonetheless. However, the influence of grunge and alternative metal / rock was rearing its head massively in 92. And you will see that from my top 6. So, let's stop fucking waffling and crack on with it. So, the year in metal and rock, 1992. And my top 6, coming in at number 6, Autopsy's Acts of the Unspeakable. 32 years old just recently. And my third favourite Autopsy record. I love this. It's mess is the wrong word, but it's a bit uppy downy when you compare it to Mental Funeral, that is my favourite Autopsy record, and the debut Severed Survival, that is just got punted into second by Mental Funeral, but almost as good. This is whatever the fucking word I'm looking for is, but this is a comfortable third and a deserved third. But yeah, was never threatening the top 2. There are some monstrous songs on here. The artwork is great, and it's classic Autopsy in places. I mean, the opener, Me, is one of my favourite Autopsy tunes of all time. It's fucking fantastic. You've got Puss Rot on here, Necrocannibalistic Vomitorium, The Blackness Within, the title track, Acts of the Unspeakable, and countless others. There's fucking loads on here. I want to say like 21 tracks or something stupid, but anyway, it's still magnificent. It's not Autopsy's finest hour, but it's damn close. And a worthy number 6, because I was all over this in 1992, because Autopsy were one of my favourite bands around that time. So yeah, loved it and loved the artwork. So my number 6 for 92, yeah, Autopsy's Acts of the Unspeakable. My number 5 and one of my favourite bands of all time. And their debut full length, the Latin titled single / EP, was the first thing that come out, I want to say, besides the demo, obviously. But it is their debut full length, As the Flower Withers, by the seminal My Dying Bride. Yeah, this album sort of changed the landscape for me in some respects, and this band did, as I've alluded to before, by the way that they sort of seamlessly crossed death metal with. I suppose you could argue that they were the first death doom band in some respects, properly. You know, I don't. Yeah, you could consider Cathedral death doom, and they probably got there a little earlier, but. This was the first one that mixed up straight up death metal with straight up doom, and it's fantastic. I mean, CME, what a way to open this album, with that notorious sort of drum beat that kicks it in with the double kick and the snare, and then the guitar harmonies come in, and it keeps building and building. It's just brilliant. Not My Dying Bride's best album for me personally. The one that followed it is, and they've done some crackers in their back catalogue. I feel like I maybe would like to revisit My Dying Bride ranking. Check out that video. I've already done a ranking of My Dying Bride. Although, crucially, it doesn't include the new one. So I feel like I want to do a ranking including the new one. Or did it include the new one? Anyway, I can't fucking remember. Did it do it just before the new one come out? Whatever. I'm fucking waffling as per classics on here. The Forever People, CME that I've just mentioned, Bitterness and the Bereavement, Vast Choirs, The Return of the Beautiful. Fantastic record, and a worthy number 5 for me in 1992. And we're on to number 4 already. Don't worry, there's going to be honourable mentions as well, and of course the glaring omission for this year. But my number 4, and again, this... Right, as daft as it sounds, in 1992, at the time, this that I'm about to show you was my favourite album of the year. It was the one that got the most rotations. And again, I was deep in my fucking Gregor worship at that point. But it is Paradise Lost's second best record for me, just behind Gothic, Shades of God. This, I mean, Lost Paradise is fantastic, and incidentally one that I forgot off the 1990 list, but I love it. It's straight up, slow, grinding death metal. Again, you could bring Paradise Lost into the Death Doom argument as well, very, very readily. But Lost Paradise felt more like grindingly slow death metal, as daft as that sounds. But yeah, great debut. Gothic, otherworldly, magnificent record that followed it. And then they changed it up again for Shades of God. Now, I've described on many videos this album, and I love it. It's almost shameless trouble worship in places. There's a lot of trouble-style doom melody harmonies, and doom melodies and harmonies. And it definitely felt like a conscious effort to me. It went more straight-up classic doom metal in places, but with Nick's more gravelly tones. But his voice had changed noticeably on this one and become more of what we're used to these days of Nick Holmes' voice as such. This is where the change happened. But an album crammed with absolute fucking belters. Now, I said on one of the other videos, I would dearly love Paradise Lost to throw in more cuts off of Gothic, a couple of cuts off of Lost Paradise into there. Like, I know they've got a fucking ton of albums and you can't play everything, of course. But I'd like to hear more of that sort of stuff live. I'd like to hear more off of this live as well. Because as it stands, they only play one off of this, which is Pity the Sadness. And it's generally the earliest track that gets an outing in their back catalogue these days, which is unforgivable. Sort it out, lads. But I understand they'll be bored to death of playing this earlier stuff. But Pity the Sadness is a cracking tune. The one that follows it, though, No Forgiveness. And the first one that I heard off of this album, I feel like it was on like a promo 7-inch that come with Kerrang or Metal Hammer or something like that. And it was a stripped down radio edit of No Forgiveness, but all the good stuff was there. But the full version's fucking magnificent. Love it. Mortals Watch the Day, what a way to open the album. You've got Crime for Eternity, Embrace, Daylight Torn. Other tracks on the B-side, Your Hand in Mine, absolutely fantastic tune. The Word Made Flesh. Crucially, on the vinyl version, you don't get As I Die. That was just a single, and I need that single in my collection. So if anyone's feeling generous, sort us out with 12-inch of that. It's a lot of money. But yeah, my number 4 and a worthy number 4, a magnificent record. And like I say, if I'd been doing this listing in 92, this would likely have been number 1. But on reflection, I think number 4 is a worthy placing for it. So yeah, my number 4, Shades of God by Paradise Lost. My number 3, and I feel like this should be higher. It just should be higher because it's absolutely cracking. And is it my favourite Trouble record? It might be, because it's the one that truly, properly got me into the band. Like I say, I'd heard Psychotic Reaction and the odd other track that made it to sort of like MTV Headbangers Ball and that sort of stuff. But it was this one, and particularly the track Memories Garden, that made me fully dive into the whole Trouble experience. And it is a majestic piece of work. It's a 10 out of 10 record, of that there is no doubt. So is the album that preceded it, though, the self-titled debut. But I was more about this at the time. This had more hooks, and it was, I suppose it's less doom metal in a classic sense. There's a bit more classic heavy rock to it as such. Psychedelic rock, psychedelic metal, whatever you want to fucking call it. Anyway, it's magnificent. Come Touch the Sky, what a way to open. Excuse Me follows it. Sleeper, Fear, Rain, Tragedy Man. Tragedy Man's fucking magnificent, and a great way to finish side A. Memories Garden opens side B. What a way to open that. The track Manic Frustration, Hello Strawberry Skies, Mr. White, and Breathe, which is a I forget who did the original. It's a cover, isn't it? But it's fucking absolutely outrageous quality is this album. And just a magnificent record. I love Trouble. They're one of my favourite bands of all time. But this was just jaw-dropping when I first truly immersed myself in it and understood what all the fuss were about. The older metalheads back then when I were a lad, the older metalheads have been telling me how great this band were. I'm like, go and check out Psalm 9 and The Skull and the self-titled. But I was all about this then, and I did obviously slowly get into that back catalogue. But fucking hell, a worthy number 3 for 1992. Trouble's Manic Frustration. My top 2 now are not, I mean, Trouble's not extreme metal, is it? Let's be honest with you. But yeah, my top 2 are more of that era, I will say. So anyway, without fucking I'm trying to justify my choices because they're legitimate choices, and fuck you if you think otherwise. But yeah, my number 2 is this absolutely otherworldly piece of brilliance. This band's finest hour, of that there is no doubt. They've had some great hours as well, but this is their finest. Everything comes together on this record. Is it grunge? No, not really. But it shows you why extreme metal and more straight up metal was struggling at the time, and why bands were making ill-informed decisions on what directions they were going to take moving forward. And I'll go into that in greater detail in my glaring omission. But besides that, I don't consider this a grunge album. Yeah, they were from Seattle, and yeah, they came out when the grunge thing was big, but there's nothing really remotely grungy about that. I've just noticed it's got me a little ticket stub there from where I saw them at the Academy in Manchester on, it's probably not got the date on it now, 1st of March 1993. It looks like somebody scribbled, it looks like it was supposed to be Thursday the 25th of February 1993, but somebody has scribbled that it was definitely the 1st of March, but I don't remember it ever getting changed. But anyway, it's a long time ago. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about the record, you fucking bellend. But I mean, where to start? Them Bones is a mammoth way to start it. Then it goes into the drop tune magnificence of Damn That River. And it is just killer after killer after killer. Fucking can barely read it. Rain When I Die, that's what it's called, the one that follows it. Then it's Sick Man. Oh no, Down in a Hole on this reissue. Then Sick Man, then Rooster. And the B-side starts with Junkhead, Dirt. You've got Godsmack, which is that bit where Tom Araya shouts something about a gland. Hate to Feel, Angry Chair, Wood. Every cut on it is a hit. But I mean, it truly is. It's just a era-defining masterpiece. I can't really say much more than that about it. Yeah, I'd love the original of this, but this costs enough. This fucking back on black fucking music on vinyl version of it. This costs enough to get hold of these days. I was very lucky. I'm sure I picked this up on sale in HMV. I don't buy vinyl from HMV anymore. I refuse to be part of that pricing scam that they fucking get involved on. And if I can go independent, I always will do. But yeah, I feel like I picked this up for about 16 quid in HMV in Leeds when it was the fucking massive HMV off of New Briggate or Albion Street or whatever it's called, wherever it was. Not where it is now in St John's. But yeah, absolutely cheap as chips find, and it's quite a few quid as this reissue as well. But anyway, enough about this fucking version of it. It's a masterpiece and a worthy number 2, but there was one album that I value higher to my musical development and musical self than that even. Now, this is going to polarise opinion what's at my number 1, because for a lot of people, this is where this band started making less sense to them. But for me, this is where this band got truly interesting and why they might be one of my favourite bands of all time as a collective discography. They've not done a bad fucking record anyway. Faith No More with their 1992 follow-up to The Real Thing. The Real Thing is brilliant. If I had any slight complaints about it, though, it'd be the fact that Mike Patton's voice is a bit nasally on his first Faith No More record, The Real Thing. But it comes into his own on this one. You can tell that he's taken a bit of vocal coaching and sort of changed up his voice. And his voice became a modern day fucking phenomenon as it went on. And like one of the greatest vocalists in metal history, arguably. His range was unfathomable. And some of the fucking stuff he's put down since. Your Mondo Canes, your Fantomas, your Tomahawks, your various stuff that he did with like the Executioners, like that General Patton thing, and stuff that he's done with John Zorn. And honestly, I mean, what a fucking back catalogue. But enough about Mike Patton. Let's talk about the band on the whole. And I absolutely loved this record. At the time, I think the lead single was Midlife Crisis, which I love. But at the time, I found that quite a difficult entry point, because it was radically different to anything that we'd heard from the previous album, The Real Thing. But it got its hooks in me, that's for fucking certain. And it's just a cracker from start to finish. It is so eclectic. You've got some classic Jim Martin guitar moments and bits that feel like old school Faith No More, but a lot less of them. You've got some straight up pop music classics like Small Victory on here. And then you've got your kind of giving head fucking anthem that is Be Aggressive on here, and other such masterpieces. You've got some real heavy duty screamers on here as well, like Jizzlobber and Malpractice. But there is so much quality on it. I love this record. It is my favourite Faith No More record. Very, very closely followed by King for a Day. But this just I know I can absolutely understand why some people felt that the band lost them at this point. That it was almost avant-garde and experimental for the fucking sake of it. And I suppose you could say like a Wes Anderson film in musical form. I think you either like it or you fucking don't. And I loved it. RV, the opening track, Land of Sunshine, brilliant. Caffeine, Midlife Crisis. Then you've got RV. Everything's Ruined Now. This is this reissue track listing, so it might be quite different. So remember, the CD track listing was fairly radically different to the original LP track listing and so on. I only had this on CD back in the day, and I've still got my original copy of it somewhere. But yeah, I had to pick this up on vinyl. All killer, no filler. The cover of Midnight Cowboy to finish off the album, I want to say, but again, depends what version that you've got. It's just incredible. Absolutely love it. And I was lucky enough to see them open with that in 2009, I want to say, up at a venue called the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh. Saw them when they were on the Reformed tour. Yeah, they opened with Midnight Cowboy. It's fucking ace. After having come on an hour late, I should have though. But anyway, that is why that is my number one. I could go on about that album all day. And like I said, there'll be some of you that don't like it, but I will argue that album to death. I fucking love it. I still love it now. I think it's magnificent. Let's talk about Also Rans. Now, I've made some comprehensive notes in the fucking hope that I don't leave something off obvious. So let's first of all get through honourable mentions that I do own physical media of. Firstly, this. Cannibal Corpse's third album, Tomb of the Mutilated. And just about their best album, although I do love the one that followed it. That's name escapes me right now. What the fuck is it called? The one that followed this one. The Bleeding, is it? That might be my favourite. But then again, this might be my favourite. I think it's some of the... I was about to say some of the more mature Cannibal Corpse works, but when you've got tracks like Icon Blood, Hammer Smashed Face, Addicted to Vaginal Skin, Necropedophile, and other such family classics, then it's hard to, when you read out that track listing, it's hard to fucking say that they were more grown up at this point. But they kind of were musically. It felt like they'd really hit their niche around here. Like I say, Butchered at Birth, the one that came before this, I like as an album, but it feels a bit messy and a bit like they've not quite found the fucking rhythm at that point. Here they clearly have, and a worthy honourable mention that was very close to making me top 6, but not quite. Probably top 10 though, like I say. Absolute dead cert top 10 this time. And one of the closest to breaching the top 6, but not quite. Danzig 3. This is actually a boot copy of it. I've not got the original, but it's a very, very good boot. I feel like it's on... Yeah, it's on a kind of green. I don't know if you can see that. Green, mottled, marbly sort of vinyl. I picked this up at a... not at a boot, a record fair. At the Corn Exchange in Leeds. And it was really reasonable. I think it was about 18 quid or something. I thought, I don't care if it's a boot, I'm having it. The sound's really, really good on it. It's quite quiet. But other than that, it's fabulous and a worthy addition. Like I say, I would like the original one day, but it's like a ton. So, 100 quid plus. So, but absolutely love this record. The first 4 Danzig albums for me are almost faultless. And they're all kind of slightly different in their own way. The production's really big on this one, though. And the opening track, Godless, is fucking magnificent. Absolutely love this record. It feels a real shame that it didn't make me top 6. But it didn't. Top 8, though, I want to say. Again, another definite top 10 on the honourable mentions list. Sleep's Holy Mountain, a Stoner Doom masterpiece. Of that, there's no doubt. There have been many, many imitators, but never quite nailed it like these guys did. We all worship at the font of Matt Pike, and some just stunning guitar moments on here. Yeah, magnificent record. Sleep's Holy Mountain. There. Third record? Anyway, yeah, worthy mention. Worthy mention for this death metal classic. You could argue one of the worst album covers in history, but a cracking bit of death metal. I want to say they were from New York, way. But yeah, Baphomet, The Dead Shall Inherit. That's all it's called. But yeah, great album. Never threatening my top 6, but a worthy mention. Another one that at the time definitely did not threaten my top fucking 8,000, let alone 6, but I've grown to absolutely adore this record. Dark Throne, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. Again, the opening 3 and the opening 3 black metal ones, I was never an enormous fan of their fucking debut, Soulside Journey, that I've just realised I didn't even get a mention, I don't think, in any of the previous. Was it the 91 one that when Soulside come out? Anyway, it's not top tier for me at all. This is fucking top tier. And a worthy mention, an absolute gem. Like I say, at the time, made no fucking sense to me whatsoever. But now, absolutely love it. This album, that again, as I mentioned with Paradise Lost, if you'd asked me back in 92 to compile a list, this would have probably been number 2 on it. I was all about this. This is Pantera's finest hour. Let's get that out there. Far Beyond Driven's okay. Not really into Southern Trendkill and whatever else sort of come after that. I think it was a kind of a stuck record at that point. But some of Dime's best guitar on here. I absolutely love this. As I mentioned on a previous video, I feel like it's not aged brilliantly, just in a sort of sense of that groove metal thing. That this is a personal thing as well. There'll be lots of people out there thinking that groove metal's aged incredibly. It might have to you. Just to me, I find it a bit old hat and sort of, it's lost that modern vibe, which at the time, this was almost futuristic compared to a lot of what stuff was going on. Again, I sort of disliked what it spawned, sadly. But there's no denying the qualities of this album. And yeah, so an honourable mention, absolutely. Pantera's finest hour, A Vulgar Display of Power. Now, others that I don't have the physical of that, I'll insert images, but I'll rattle through them while trying my best not to forget any. Biohazard, was it Urban Discipline? Forget what it's called. Anyway, there's an image down there. If you like all that faux fucking hardman Brooklyn shite that Biohazard peddle, don't get me wrong, this album was really good, and the one that followed it was really good as well. But I just find them laughable, just all this fucking posturing, and I don't know, if you want an unintentionally funny treat, follow Evan Steinfeld's Instagram account, please, because he's got into all that fucking, what he calls it, mentorship, and it's all about in you know, appreciating your masculinity and all that stuff, and it's a load of fucking steadheads somewhere in Tulum in Mexico or wherever, just basically all fucking circle jerking about how amazing they are as men, and how they're underappreciated, and how they can take control of their goals. It's all this fucking motivational shite that it's just like, take hold, you don't need some fucking drip with not an ounce of fat on him fucking telling you. But anyway, I've drifted off topic here. But yeah, Biohazard, worth a mention. And if you want a good laugh, follow Evan's fucking Instagram. Testament. Oh, The Ritual. Anyway, there's an image down there. Great album from Testament. Never threatened. Ministry, Psalm 69, my favourite Ministry album, and yeah, I loved this. This would have likely made me top 6 back in the day. But yeah, sort of industrial metal brilliance. Very hit and miss, Ministry, but this was definitely a fucking hit. They were firing on this one. One of my favourite Melvins album, Lysol. It was just self-titled originally, was this, but they had to call it Lysol. I think eventually there was some to do with the cover image like rights, and I think by putting a title on it, they had to. It meant that they could use it anyway, whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, I adore this. Hung Bunny on it, and just that fucking droney intro. Yeah, magnificent record by the Melvins. Who else have we got? Caius. Is it Blues for the Red Sun? Anyway, whichever one. I don't quite worship at the altar of Caius a lot like some of my friends do. I think they were hugely overrated personally. Shock horror. I think Queens of the Stone Age are a better band than Caius ever were. And that's going to annoy lots of you, I know. It's the vocals. Caius's vocalist, I just didn't like his style. It was all that. Just all that fucking shite and posturing on stage. Didn't like it, and it really put me off him. Yeah, a couple of great tunes, don't get me wrong. And I suppose a desert rock classic. But it just doesn't do a lot for me. Queens of the Stone Age did much more for me, but honourable mention for Caius all the same. Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark. I'd tapped out at this point a long time, and I've never really gone back. The title track, Fear of the Dark's great, but the rest of it, I can take it or leave it, quite honestly. Black Sabbath, Dehumanizer. Stunning record. Great album. And the album that was the catalyst for me finally understanding the Sabbath back catalogue that didn't have Ozzy on it. Because I was very much an Ozzy man up to that point. And then, because of course it's Ronnie James Dio on Dehumanizer, and he did such a good job, and it's a great, great album. Yeah, they've done better, but it's a great, great album, and it was that album that made me truly appreciate the original Ronnie James era of Sabbath, and then your Ray Gillens, it was Ian Gillan and whatever, your Tony Martins, all the other eras of Sabbath. It's thanks to this album that I actually began to understand it and appreciate it. So hats off. What have I written there? I can't read my note. Oh, Solitude Eternus, Beyond the Crimson Horizon, or what to say. Anyway, image inserted. Cracking bit of Solitude Eternus. And again, honourable mention. Never threatening my top 6, though. Dayside, Legion. For me, a disappointment after the debut, personally. A lot of people talk this up as like an absolute cracker as well, and I think the first 2 or 3 tracks are, but it tails off for me after that. But an honourable mention all the same. Brutal Truth, Extreme Measures Require, anyway, whatever it's called. There's an image down there. Great. I wasn't overly sold on this at the time, but again, learned to really appreciate it. And I saw them live at the Rios with, I want to say, Pungent Stench and Macabre. I can't remember the year it was, but I definitely saw Brutal Truth, Pungent Stench, Macabre all on the same night. Macabre were ace, Pungent Stench were really funny, and Brutal Truth were fucking really heavy, and it was that sort of made me appreciate them a bit more. Bolt Thrower, Fourth Crusade, absolutely cracking album. Again, I was all about War Master and Realm of Chaos at the time, and this album just felt like a bit more of the same, that they'd not really changed it up enough. Once you know Bolt Thrower, you know that they're not a band that changes stuff up. It is pretty much a bit more of the same. But I've really learned to love this album. It's a fucking cracker. So an honourable mention. Obituary, The End Complete. This album was a disappointment to me at the time, purely because it didn't have James Murphy on it. Now, I'll stop the James Murphy worship, but it just felt like the riffs were all there, the songs were there, but the solo sounded shit compared to what had been on Cause of Death. So it always just felt a bit like, oh, it's all right, but it's no Cause of Death, is it? I've since learned to appreciate it better, and it's right up there, definitely top 5 Obituary albums. Of that, there's no doubt. But at the time, I struggled with it. And I still do a bit now. It still just feels, if James Murphy were on that, it sounded miles better. But it wasn't, so it isn't. Doesn't. Napalm Death, Utopia Banished, image inserted. Another fucking cracker. I feel like I've missed stuff off, but it's just going to have to stay missed off. Fuck it. I'm sick of looking at my own shoddy notes. So those are my honourable mentions. My glaring omission. And it's time for this. Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. I've been quite vocal about my distaste of anything that follows Rust in Peace, quite frankly, by Megadeth. Killing Is My Business, decent debut, but really rough around the edges when you compare it to Show No Mercy by Slayer, Kill 'Em All by Metallica. Maybe not quite as rough around the edges as Anthrax's debut. But anyway, really rough around the edges. But Peace Sells, So Far So Good So What, and Rust in Peace are a back-to-back work of genius. They are just magnificent records, all three of them. Absolutely love them. That can be said far less about Countdown to Extinction. And I just flat out didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. I think for a number of reasons. I mentioned Alice in Chains earlier. Metallica had gone all sensible as well with their Black Album, and I'm not saying for a minute that Metallica had sort of felt the pull of the grunge metal thing and all that, but I think extreme metal bands and thrash bands in particular, and the Big Four, had felt the need around this time to reinvent themselves slightly. Slayer didn't. I should add, but most of them had. In fact, yeah, no. Slayer's other one came a lot later, did it? I'm thinking, have I forgotten Divine Intervention? Was that 92? Or was that 94? I feel like it was 94. Anyway, fucking ignore me. If I've forgotten it, never mind. But yeah, I just feel like Megadeth were trying to play they weren't trying to be a grunge band. I just bear with me. I'm trying badly to explain this. They were just trying to, I think, write their Black Album, or write their modern alternative rock, alternative metal kind of album. And it was just a fucking waste of everyone's time, quite frankly. You've got a track, Countdown to Extinction. And I think where Megadeth fell down is Dave Mustaine's awful voice. He only really nailed it for me on Peace Sells and So Far So Good So What. You can hear a bit of his whiny awfulness coming into Rust in Peace, to be quite honest with you, but not enough to detract from the brilliance that album is. It's on Countdown in spades, though, and it's just an unlikable album. Yeah, an album with Nick Menza and Marty Feldman. Marty Feldman was the guy with the eyes that from Young Frankenstein or whatever it is. Not Marty Feldman. Although I'd be interested to see the Megadeth lineup with him on it. No, Marty Friedman, Nick Menza, Ellefson, Mustaine. You could argue the finest Megadeth lineup, chops-wise. But it just doesn't work, this album, for me. I know there's a lot of people that still think, oh, yeah, it's all right. It was after this, though. Yeah, I agree that, with euthanasia and all that fucking garbage. But I just flat out don't like this album. It's Megadeth trying to be all fucking sensible and pretentious. And the songs suffer for it. Mustaine's voice is awful. Is this the one with Sweating Bullets on it? Anyway, I mean, that is just comically fucking awful, that song. There's no getting past that horrendous fucking vocal that he puts on it. It's just fucking gibberish. Oh, that might be on Euthanasia anyway. Don't profess to know much about it, but that is why Countdown to Extinction is my glaring omission for 92, because it's just flat out a fucking shite record. And let that be an end of it. So, there we are. That is my top 6 glaring omissions and honourable mentions for 1992. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, then I can only apologise. But never mind, you'll get over it. So until, like I said, there might not be a video next week, but until the next video, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. Many thanks for subscribing, especially all you new kids. And until the next time, I'll see you later. Take care.